Well, hello, subscriber dears. My name is Dara, aka the Conservative Vagabond, and I am finding myself in an odd position where my writing is suddenly very applicable, but not in the way I would have liked it to be. If you had been reading along with my essays on excommunicated feminists and also my rant on Thursday last week about the affirmative consent laws that the LNP had just brought in, you'll know that I'm kind of unhappy with the state of affairs at the moment. As it happens, and I explained on my ranting email that I actually thought that the laws needed an update. There was clearly some procedural issues in the sense that, there was cases where there was a jury conviction and it got overturned on appeal and then got sent back to the trial court, and that serves no one. If there's continual problems where the judge doesn't understand what instructions he has to give the jury, that is clearly an issue, and the law needed to be reformed. The problem is that the Law Reform Commissions have a singular talent for making bad laws worse, and I had feared that if it was to go to the Law Reform Commission, that I'd end up basically recommending affirmative consent. That is not what happened. In fact, they rejected affirmative consent, and instead the LNP decided that they didn't want to do anything that made them look like they were sexist, so they introduced these laws anyway, even though it would come at the expense, potentially, of justice. So, here we are. What they should have done instead is to listen to me, but that's not what happened. They decided to go through this affirmative consent path. There's a few issues with affirmative consent. The main issue is that it basically considers every single sexual interaction as the same. So whether you're together for 20 years and can read each other versus, a casual one night stand where you maybe need to check in and see whether, the other person is enjoying it. That's what you should be doing. That's what should happen. I'm not going to suggest otherwise, but, it's unrealistic to expect the same thing from a couple that's been together 20 years, The other thing is that, much to the joy of some of the, men's rights activists, probably this law is as likely to impact upon women as it is men. I don't want to speak for myself, but I can't say with any certainty that I have 100% asked a man every time that I have engaged in another kind of activity in the bedroom, specifically asked for consent. I also can't say with any certainty that I have definitely not engaged in any sexual activity with a man that was 100% sober. So I think I'm a rapist. I think I might be a rapist. Oh dear. Anyway, so that's the problem with these laws, is that the bar is too high. It expects that people that have been together for 20 years engage in the same kind of behavior that would be, good manners if it was a casual encounter. The other thing is that, if you consider not asking to do X or Y or whatever the case may be, and the idea that people can't consent if they're intoxicated, if that's the standard of the law, then, sorry ladies, you're just as likely to fall afoul of it. Congrats. Yes, so that's the problem. But there are some things that this government could have done instead. For instance, they could have just changed the law to be objective, but no, we're not going to do that, are we? But there are some things that would respond, or rather, should be championed by feminists, and some feminists are championing that this LNP government could have picked up. For instance, I talked about equity feminists, and that to some degree, women just need to accept that, casual sex is risky and you're going to go do it anyway. Okay, fine, great. We can accept that as a risky, a premises that casual sex is risky, and if you want to do it, you do it, accepting all the risks. But the problem is that women are, strictly speaking, at a physical disadvantage, and that's why we have, instructions to the jury that a woman not fighting back is not indicating consent, because, of course, you're not going to fight back if you're a 5-foot girl like myself and you're matched with a 6-foot guy. I'm at a physical disadvantage there, right? I'm not going to go and go off fisticuffs. Although I do actually have some martial arts training, but as a general rule, I probably aren't going to go fisticuffs. I'm going to placate until I can get the hell out of there. I'm going to fly. I'm not fighting, I'm flighting if I can. But for that, I need to get into a position where I can flight. And for that, you need to placate. So, this is where actually empowering women to be able to defend themselves by giving them self-defense training, giving them assertiveness training, which is something which I probably would have done really well with, to be honest. I can defend myself physically, kind of. I have done Krav Maga and stuff, but assertiveness training is something that I really could have done well with, speaking for myself personally. And then, of course, giving them, legal rights to defend themselves, such as removing the law in New South Wales that makes it a 5-year jail sentence if you're carrying pepper spray. So these are some things that could have actually been done instead of affirmative consent in order to protect and allow women to, be empowered to defend themselves. But apparently, we're not going to go down that road. The second one, and this is why, TERFs, these, trans exclusionary radical feminists, are on the ascendance at the moment, is because you cannot have a conversation about sexual violence without, actually at the same time as we're trying to deny all sex differences. That's just not going to happen. And this is why, when I've talked about kind of, affirmative consent making women as likely to rape men as the other way around, it's that is just kind of a completely erroneous equation. Everyone knows that, the disparities between the sexes in regards to sexual violence is a thing, and it's not going to go away. So we need to actually talk to, each other, or talk about sexual violence in a gendered way. We cannot do it any other way, otherwise we're not going to have any results whatsoever. And this is where, there is a clear distinction between what should be expected from the law. And again, I reiterate, consent, useful concept, needs to be objective. But in the culture, and how we think about these interactions ought not to be in these terms. I think we really need to have a conversation about consent is not the golden rule. It's not the cardinal rule, and not the virtue that we should be aspiring to in our, sexual interactions. It doesn't guarantee good sex. And when we denude the language so much as we say whether, in determining whether the sex was good sex, we ask whether it was consensual or not. But that is not the appropriate question. The appropriate question is, for the law, was it rape or not, or was it consensual or not? But that's not the question we should be asking when we have sexual interactions. We shouldn't be asking, is this person consenting to me using them as a means to gain sexual gratification? We should be asking, can I make this person happy? Can I pleasure them? What am I doing to help them be pleasured? And that's what changes. It's not enough to say that sex should be consented to, it should be good. Can we just set the bar a bit higher and say, instead of asking that sex be purely consensual. Can we ask that it be good? I mean, is that possible? Yeah, that would be good. Thank you. And finally, it's the radical feminists. And I'm really fascinated with this coalition on the right of radical feminists and conservatives. I think it's kind of one of those things that have cropped up in recent years, and fascinates me. Anyway, but actually in these circles of, feminists such as Louise Perry and conservatives that follow them, they're actually having a very considerate and sophisticated conversation about consent, particularly if you look at campaigns like #We Cannot Consent to This, and that there might be some limits to consent. And if this conservative government really, really, really wanted to be ahead of the 8 ball on conversations about sex and consent and so on, they might actually draw in some of these voices, and because they would both appease the radical feminists and the conservatives at the same time, and actually create very sophisticated laws that apply in our modern age. So, that's the things they could have done. So that's my very casual rant. If you want a less casual version, and I say less casual as in very slightly less casual, you can read my Substack. The link is below. See you!